Hello, and welcome back to the Mellow Mind. Have you ever watched a butterfly land near you and wondered how such intricate beauty came to be? Those delicate wings, painted with patterns that would make Renaissance masters weep with envy, didn't appear overnight. They are the result of millions of years of patient artistry, where evolution played the role of both artist and critic, slowly perfecting each brushstroke of color, each line of symmetry, each dot and dash that decorates these flying jewels. But here's what makes this story even more wondrous. Butterflies cannot see their own wings. They carry masterpieces on their backs, wear artwork that has been refined over countless generations, and yet they will never gaze upon their own beauty the way we do. They are unknowing canvases, living galleries that evolution has painted with purpose far deeper than mere decoration. Tonight, as the world grows quiet around you, we'll explore how these patterns emerge from the microscopic dance of genes and proteins, how they serve as secret languages spoken in the currency of survival, and how they reveal some of the most elegant principles of life itself. We'll discover why some butterflies wear eye spots that stare back at predators, why others shimmer with colors that don't technically exist, and how the same genetic toolkit that builds a simple brown wing can also create the most spectacular displays in the natural world. Perhaps you've never given much thought to butterfly wings beyond their obvious beauty, but like many of nature's most stunning displays, there are stories hidden in every scale, secrets whispered in every pattern. These wings are libraries written in the language of evolution, each marking a chapter in the grand tale of life adapting, surviving, and flourishing through change. So settle in, dear listener, as we open this living book together. Let the gentle rhythm of science carry you forward, like floating downstream on a warm evening, discovering treasures you never knew existed in the delicate architecture of butterfly wings. To understand the artistry of butterfly wings, we must first appreciate the canvas itself. Imagine holding a butterfly wing up to the light, not to harm this delicate creature, but in that gentle way, you might examine a pressed flower in an old book. What you're looking at isn't quite what it seems. That wing, gossamer thin, and seemingly fragile as tissue paper, is actually one of nature's most sophisticated architectural marvels. It's built from thousands upon thousands of tiny scales, each one smaller than a grain of salt, arranged in overlapping rows like shingles on a cottage roof. These scales, the source of the wing's color and pattern, are not painted on like watercolor on paper. They are living structures, each one a microscopic masterpiece of engineering. Under a powerful microscope, these scales reveal themselves as intricate three-dimensional sculptures. Some have surfaces covered in precise ridges and valleys that split light into rainbows. Others contain tiny structures called photonic crystals that manipulate light in ways that would impress a physics professor. Still others hold pigment molecules locked in crystalline chambers, ready to absorb some wavelengths of light while reflecting others back to our wondering eyes. The word butterfly itself carries poetry from the Old English butterflage, possibly referring to the butter-yellow color of common species, or perhaps to an old belief that butterflies were attracted to milk and butter left uncovered. But in many languages, butterflies carry names that speak to their ethereal nature. In French, they are papillons, from the Latin for tent or pavilion, as if they carry tiny colorful shelters wherever they go. The transformation from caterpillar to butterfly, metamorphosis, is perhaps one of the most profound changes in the natural world. Inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar's body literally dissolves, breaking down into a kind of organic soup from which the butterfly emerges, completely rebuilt. It's as if evolution took apart a walking, leaf-eating machine and reassembled it as a flying nectar-seeking jewel. The wing patterns we admire so much are among the last details to be painted during this extraordinary reconstruction. But here's what makes butterfly wings even more remarkable. They develop their patterns while folded and crumpled inside that chrysalis, like origami unfolding in the dark. Cells communicate with each other through chemical signals, following genetic instructions written over millions of years of evolutionary refinement. Position by position, scale by scale, the pattern emerges with mathematical precision, creating symmetrical designs that mirror each other across the wing's center line with astonishing accuracy. This is no random splashing of color. Every spot, every stripe, Every gradient serves a purpose. Some patterns are advertisements, bright warnings that say, "I taste terrible," or seductive displays that whisper, "Choose me as a mate." Others are elaborate camouflage systems that render the butterfly nearly invisible when it needs to hide. Still others are optical illusions designed to confuse predators or startle them just long enough for escape. As we prepare to dive deeper into this world, picture butterfly wings not as static decorations, but as dynamic communication systems. They are nature's billboards, artwork with message, beauty with purpose. Each pattern tells a story of survival strategies refined over geological time, of environmental pressures that shaped not just behavior, but the very language of color and form. I'm so glad you've drifted here tonight, to this quiet corner where wonder meets rest, where the mysteries of nature unfold like silk against the darkness. Tonight, we're embarking on a gentle journey into one of evolution's most exquisite art galleries, the intricate, shimmering world of butterfly wing patterns. If you're settling in for the evening, perhaps curled up in your favorite spot with a warm drink growing cool, you've found the perfect refuge. This is where science puts on its softest voice, where complex ideas float by like dandelion seeds on a summer breeze. Tonight's exploration might just be fascinating enough to keep you gently awake, but I hope it's soothing enough to carry you toward peaceful dreams. Before we flutter into this world of living art, if you find comfort in these slow journeys through science, I'd be ever so grateful if you gave this video a gentle like, subscribe to join our quiet community, or simply left a comment telling me where in the world you're listening from tonight. Are there butterflies dancing in gardens near you, or perhaps resting until spring returns? Now, take a deep breath, let your shoulders drop, and imagine for a moment that you're walking through the world's most extraordinary art museum. But this isn't filled with paintings hung on walls or sculptures placed on pedestals. This gallery is alive, fluttering, breathing. Every exhibit has wings that catch the light, patterns that shift and shimmer as they move. Welcome to evolution's masterpiece, the living canvas of butterfly wings. In all of this complexity, this stunning artistry grows from instructions contained in a genome, a blueprint written in the four-letter alphabet of DNA. The same genetic mechanisms that determine where a butterfly's legs will grow also determine where its wing spots will appear. It's as if evolution discovered that the tools for building bodies could also be used for painting them, turning every butterfly into a living canvas where form and function dance together in perfect harmony. Let quote C begin with a mystery that has puzzled naturalists for centuries. Why do so many butterflies have what appear to be eyes staring back at you from their wings? These eye spots, as they're called, can be found on species across the globe, from the modest wood nymph butterflies that flutter through meadows to the enormous owl butterflies of tropical rainforests, whose eye spots are so realistic, they seem to watch you as you watch them. At first glance, these eye spots might seem like mere decoration, a curious quirk of nature's artistic sensibilities. But look closer, and you'll discover they're actually sophisticated pieces of evolutionary technology, each one a small miracle of biological engineering, designed to manipulate the minds of other creatures. Imagine you're a small bird foraging in the forest when suddenly, a pair of large, unblinking eyes appears to be staring directly at you. Your first instinct isn't to investigate, it's to flee. Those eyes might belong to an owl, a snake, or some other predator, far larger and more dangerous than you. In that split second of hesitation, that moment of what is that, the butterfly with the fake eyes has already disappeared into the safety of the leaves. This is startle display at its finest, a magic trick that evolution has been perfecting for millions of years. But the cleverness doesn't stop there. Some butterflies, like the peacock butterfly of Europe, keep their eye spots hidden on the undersides of their wings. When resting, they look like a dead leaf, brown, unremarkable, practically invisible. But when threatened, they quickly flash open their wings, revealing 4 brilliant eye spots, accompanied by a rustling sound designed to mimic a much larger, more dangerous creature. Other species have taken this deception even further. The owl butterflies of Central and South America don't just have eye spots, they have eye spots positioned and colored to look remarkably like the faces of owls. When a butterfly lands and folds its wings, the eye spots align to create what appears to be an owl's head, complete with a beak-like marking between the eyes. Some birds are so thoroughly fooled by this disguise that they've been observed actually mobbing the butterflies, treating them as real owls to be driven away. But eye spots serve another purpose too, one that's perhaps even more ingenious. They act as false targets, drawing predator attacks away from the butterfly's vital body parts. Many butterflies have small eye spots positioned near their wingtips, sometimes accompanied by tail-like projections that resemble antennae. To a bird or lizard, attacking from behind, these false heads suggest that the butterfly is facing the opposite direction. When the predator strikes at what it thinks is the butterfly's head, it gets a mouthful of wingtip instead. The butterfly may lose a piece of wing, but it escapes with its life, and butterfly wings are remarkably good at functioning even when partially damaged. It's a brilliant evolutionary trade-off. Sacrifice a bit of wing to save everything else. The remarkable thing about eye spots is how they're made. Each one develops from a small group of cells that acts like a organizing center, sending out chemical signals in concentric waves. The cells closest to this center respond to the highest concentration of the signal and become the dark pupil of the eye. Cells a bit farther out receive a medium dose and become the bright iris. Those on the periphery receive the weakest signal and form the outer ring, if there is one. It's like dropping a pebble in a still pond and watching the ripples spread outward, except these ripples are made of chemical messengers, and they're painting a pattern that can mean the difference between life and death. The same basic mechanism can create tiny eye spots, or enormous ones, single eyes or multiple eyes, realistic eyes or abstract circles, all by adjusting the strength and timing of these chemical signals. This discovery revolutionized our understanding of how complex patterns develop. Scientists realized that nature doesn't need to carry blueprints for every possible pattern. Instead, it uses simple rules and chemical gradients to create complexity from simplicity. It's like having a recipe that says add ingredients in this order, with these proportions for this amount of time, and getting a different delicious dish each time depending on the exact conditions in your kitchen. The eye spot system is so elegantly simple that evolution has reinvented it over and over again. Butterflies that are only distantly related to each other have independently evolved eye spots, each species discovering this same solution to the problem of survival. It suggests that in the grand library of evolutionary possibilities, the eye spot solution is written in large, clear letters, easy to find when the need arises. As you lie there tonight, perhaps you can imagine these tiny organizing centers, these spots of cells that will become eyes, receiving their chemical signals and beginning to paint their circles of deception. Each eye spot is a small act of creation, a biological artist working with molecular brushes to create a masterpiece of misdirection, and in the morning, that masterpiece will unfold into the world, ready to stare down predators and dance through gardens on wings that carry a secret language written in the grammar of survival. Deep in the Amazon rainforest, where humidity clings to your skin like silk and every surface seems to pulse with life, the blue morpho, with wings that span nearly 8 inches, appears to be painted with the most pure electric blue imaginable, a blue so intense it seems to glow with its own inner light, a blue that makes the sky itself seem pale by comparison. But here's the fascinating secret. There is no blue pigment anywhere on those wings. Not a single molecule of blue dye colors those magnificent wings. Instead, what you're seeing is one of nature's most elegant optical illusions, a master class in physics that would make a laser engineer weep with envy. The blue morpho's wings are covered with scales that have evolved into living prisms. Under an electron microscope, these scales reveal themselves as intricate landscapes of ridges and valleys, precisely spaced structures that split white light into its component colors and reflect back only the blue wavelengths. The exact spacing of these microscopic ridges, measured in nanometers, billions of a meter, determines the exact shade of blue you see. It's called structural coloration, and it works on the same principle as soap bubbles or oil slicks on water. Light waves bounce between the different layers of the wing scale's surface, and when the waves are perfectly in sync, they amplify each other. When they're out of sync, they cancel each other out. By precisely controlling the spacing of these structures, the morpho has tuned its wings to broadcast blue light with remarkable efficiency. This creates color that is impossibly pure and bright, more saturated than any pigment could achieve. But it also creates color that shifts and shimmers as the butterfly moves, because structural colors change depending on the angle at which you view them. As a morpho butterfly flies through dappled forest light, its wings flash like sapphire beacons, visible to human eyes from nearly half a mile away. But why blue? In the green world of the rainforest, where every surface is covered in leaves and filtered sunlight creates a verdant cathedral, blue is the rarest color. It stands out like a neon sign in a library. For morpho butterflies, this brilliant blue is a mating signal, a way for individuals to spot each other across the complex three-dimensional maze of the forest. The brighter and more pure the blue, the more attractive the butterfly is to potential mates. However, being that visible also makes morphos incredibly attractive to predators. Their solution is as elegant as their coloration. The undersides of their wings are painted in subtle browns and beiges, patterns that mimic dead leaves with extraordinary accuracy. When a morpho lands and closes its wings, it vanishes as completely as if it had never existed. The transformation is so complete that even experienced naturalists sometimes lose track of morphos they were watching just moments before. This creates one of nature's most dramatic games of hide and seek. As the morpho flies, it flashes brilliant blue. Now you see me, now you don't. Now you see me, now you don't, making it almost impossible for a predator to track its true position. Birds trying to catch morphos often strike at empty air, confused by the strobing blue signals that seem to appear and disappear at random intervals throughout the forest. The genius of structural coloration extends far beyond morphos. The tiny copper butterflies that visit your garden flowers also use similar techniques, though on a much smaller scale. Their wings contain microscopic structures that reflect specific wavelengths of orange and red light, creating colors that seem to burn like tiny embers in the sunlight. Some species even have scales that act like one-way mirrors, appearing dark from certain angles and brilliantly metallic from others. Perhaps even more remarkable are the butterflies that have learned to combine structural and pigment-based coloration to create colors that seem almost supernatural. The sunset moth of Madagascar, technically a moth, but following similar principles, has wings that shimmer through the entire spectrum, brilliant greens shifting to electric blues, fiery oranges melting into deep purples, all from the same wing surface. It's like wearing a rainbow that changes depending on where you stand. These structural colors also explain one of the most poignant aspects of butterfly collecting. When specimens are preserved in museum collections, the structural colors often remain vibrant for decades or even centuries, while pigment-based colors fade like old photographs. There are blue morphos in natural history museums that were collected over 100 years ago, and their wings still flash with the same electric intensity they had when they first emerged from their chrysalises in long-vanished patches of rainforest. But structural coloration is just one tool in evolution's artistic toolkit. The patterns themselves, the stripes and spots, the borders and gradients, follow mathematical rules that echo throughout the natural world. Many butterfly wing patterns can be described using the same equations that explain how zebra stripes form, how leopard spots develop, or how waves break on a beach. These patterns emerge from reaction diffusion systems, where two or more chemical signals spread across the developing wing surface at different rates and interact with each other in predictable ways. Where the chemicals meet in certain concentrations, they trigger the development of dark pigments. Where they miss each other or cancel out, the wing remains light. It's like having invisible painters working across the wing's surface, each with their own speed and style, creating patterns where their work overlaps. The mathematical beauty of these systems was first described by Alan Turing. Yes, the same Turing who helped crack the Enigma code and laid the foundations for computer science. In 1952, he published a paper showing how simple chemical reactions could generate complex biological patterns. His equations, known as Turing patterns, describe how stripes, spots, and other regular patterns can emerge spontaneously from initially uniform systems. What Turing showed was that nature doesn't need a grand designer drawing blueprints for every pattern. Instead, complex beauty can emerge from the interactions of simple rules, like a jazz improvisation, where multiple musicians follow basic chord progressions, but create music that surprises even themselves. Evolution discovered this principle millions of years before humans worked out the mathematics, using it to paint wings with patterns that are both beautiful and functional. As we drift deeper into this exploration, imagine these chemical painters at work inside a developing chrysalis, molecules diffusing across wing surfaces, reacting with each other in precisely timed sequences, triggering the growth of scales with exactly the right optical properties to create exactly the right color in exactly the right place. Each butterfly wing is the result of this molecular choreography, performed in the darkness of metamorphosis, and revealed only when the newly emerged adult spreads its wings for the first time in the morning light. In the highlands of Mexico, there lives a butterfly that has mastered one of nature's most dangerous games. The monarch butterfly, with its distinctive orange and black pattern, appears to be advertising itself to every predator in the forest. In a world where most creatures try to blend into their surroundings, monarchs are the equivalent of wearing a neon sign that says, "Here I am." But there's deadly purpose behind this bold display, and it reveals one of evolution's most sophisticated communication systems. Monarchs are poisonous, not mildly unpleasant, not slightly bitter, but genuinely toxic enough to make a bird violently ill, or even kill a small predator. This poison comes from their diet as caterpillars, when they feed exclusively on milkweed plants. Milkweeds produce toxic compounds called cardiac glycosides as a defense against herbivores, but monarch caterpillars have evolved the ability to not only tolerate these toxins but concentrate them in their own bodies. When a monarch caterpillar pupates and emerges as a butterfly, it carries these toxins with it. The poison is especially concentrated in the wings and exoskeleton, the parts most likely to end up in a predator's mouth first. A bird that tries to eat a monarch quickly learns that the bright orange and black pattern is associated with a very unpleasant experience. This is called warning coloration, or aposematism, and it works because predators can learn. After one or two encounters with genuine monarchs, most birds develop what can only be described as a phobia of orange and black butterflies. They see those colors and immediately change direction, having learned to associate that specific pattern with danger. But here's where the story becomes truly remarkable. Other butterflies have been watching this system work for millions of years, and some species have learned to cheat. The viceroy butterfly, once thought to be a monarch mimic, actually represents a different kind of evolutionary strategy. Viceroys are also toxic, though they get their poison from a different source, willow trees rather than milkweeds. What we're seeing isn't mimicry, but what scientists call Mullerian mimicry, where two poisonous species evolve to look similar to each other, sharing the cost of educating predators. True mimicry occurs when harmless species evolve to look like dangerous ones. In the Amazon, there are butterflies that have no toxins whatsoever, but have evolved wing patterns nearly identical to their poisonous neighbors. These Batesian mimics are essentially flying lies, wearing costumes that say I'm dangerous when they're actually completely harmless. The system works because the mimics are much rarer than the models they copy. If there were too many harmless wolves crying wolf, predators would quickly learn to ignore the warning signals. Some regions of the tropics host entire communities of butterflies that have converged on similar warning patterns. In parts of South America, you might find a dozen different species, some poisonous, some harmless, some mildly toxic, all wearing variations of the same red, black, and yellow pattern. From a distance, they're nearly impossible to tell apart, creating what's called a mimicry ring, where multiple species share the same advertisement space. This creates one of the most complex communication networks in nature. Imagine a forest where dozens of species are participating in an elaborate game of identity and deception, where colors and patterns carry messages as specific as words in a language. Red and black might mean cardiac glycosides present, while blue and green could signal cyanide compounds or alkaloid toxins. Predators that learn to read this color-coded warning system can navigate safely through what would otherwise be a minefield of potentially dangerous prey. But not all butterfly communication involves warning signals. Many species use their wing patterns for more subtle forms of messaging, particularly when it comes to attracting mates. Male butterflies often have specialized scales called androconia that release pheromones, chemical signals that can be detected by females from remarkable distances. These scent scales are sometimes arranged in specific patterns on the wings, creating what amount to chemical billboards. Some species take this chemical communication to extraordinary lengths. Male Queen Alexandra's birdwing butterflies, the largest butterflies in the world, have specialized patches on their wings that release pheromones so potent that females can detect them from over a mile away. The chemical signature is so specific that even closely related species cannot interpret each other's messages. It's like having a private radio frequency that only members of your species can tune into. Even more fascinating are the species that combine visual and chemical signals in sophisticated ways. Some tropical butterflies have wing patterns that only become fully apparent under ultraviolet light, a spectrum that butterfly eyes can see but human eyes cannot. What appears to us as a simple black and white pattern might look completely different to a butterfly, revealing hidden ultraviolet signals that guide courtship behavior or species recognition. This invisible communication extends to patterns that help butterflies identify their own species among the hundreds of similar-looking species that might share the same habitat. In regions of high butterfly diversity, such as the eastern slopes of the Andes, species recognition becomes a critical survival skill. Mistaking a member of another species for a potential mate wastes precious time and energy that could be spent on actual reproductive opportunities. The precision of these recognition systems is astounding. Some butterflies can distinguish between wing patterns that differ by just a few degrees in the orientation of a stripe or the exact shade of a color patch. It's pattern recognition, at a level that would challenge a sophisticated computer program, all performed by a brain smaller than a pinhead operating on the energy equivalent of a few grains of sugar. This pattern-based communication system has been evolving for at least 200 million years, ever since the first moths began flying through Mesozoic forests. Over that vast span of time, butterflies and moths have developed a visual vocabulary so rich and complex that we're still only beginning to decode its meanings. Every wing pattern tells a story of survival pressures, environmental challenges, and evolutionary solutions worked out over geological timescales. As you settle deeper into the night, perhaps you can imagine this invisible conversation happening all around us. Butterflies communicating in languages of color and chemistry, sending messages we're only just learning to interpret. Each pattern is a word in an ancient dialogue between predators and prey, between males and females, between species trying to distinguish themselves from their neighbors while sometimes borrowing each other's costumes for protection. Inside a chrysalis, hanging from a branch, invisible to the outside world, a caterpillar that knew only the simple world of leaf eating and growing has dissolved into a cellular soup, and from that soup, something entirely new is being assembled. But perhaps the most remarkable part of this transformation is how those intricate wing patterns that will determine whether this individual lives or dies, finds a mate or dies alone, are being painted with microscopic precision in the darkness. The story begins with a group of cells that seem to know something their neighbors don't. These cells, called organizing centers, appear during the early stages of wing development and begin sending out chemical signals like lighthouses broadcasting into the darkness. These signals aren't random. They pulse in specific rhythms, spread at precise speeds, and interact with other signals in ways that follow mathematical laws as elegant as music. Imagine these signals as colored dyes spreading through water, but dyes that can only be seen by certain cells, and only when they reach specific concentrations. where two signals meet and their combined concentration crosses a particular threshold, cells receive the molecular equivalent of a command, make black pigment here. Where signals are weaker or absent entirely, cells get a different message, stay clear or make yellow, or grow the structures for blue iridescence. The beauty of this system is that a few organizing centers, sending out just a handful of different signals, can create patterns of enormous complexity. It's like having a small orchestra, where each instrument plays a simple melody, but when all the melodies combine, they create a symphony that moves people to tears. One of the most important discoveries in understanding wing pattern development came from studying the genetics of eye spots. Scientists found that they could create butterflies with extra eye spots, or move eye spots to different parts of the wing, or even change their size and color, all by manipulating just a few key genes. These experiments revealed that the same genetic toolkit that builds an animal's body plan also paints its patterns. The gene called distolless, for example, helps determine where a butterfly's legs will grow during development, but it also marks the center of each eye spot. Another gene, ingrailed, helps define the boundaries between body segments, but it's also involved in creating the sharp borders between different colored regions on wings. Evolution has been remarkably economical, using the same genetic tools for multiple purposes, like a carpenter who discovers that the same square can be used for measuring angles and drawing straight lines. This genetic recycling explains why butterfly wing patterns follow so many of the same rules as other biological patterns. The stripes on butterfly wings develop according to the same principles as the stripes on zebrafish, the segments on fly embryos, or even the ridges on mammalian teeth. Nature has discovered a set of pattern-making tools that work so well that they've been applied to everything from butterfly wings to the arrangement of leaves on a stem. But genetics alone don't determine the final pattern. The signals sent out by organizing centers must navigate through the complex three-dimensional landscape of a developing wing, spreading along cell surfaces, diffusing through intercellular spaces, being absorbed by some cells and ignored by others. The final pattern emerges from the interaction between genetic instructions and the physical properties of the growing tissue. It's a conversation between biology and physics, genes and geometry. Environmental factors can also influence how these patterns develop. Butterflies that develop at different temperatures can have subtly different wing patterns, even if they're genetically identical. The Arctic butterflies that emerge later in the season, when temperatures are cooler, often have darker patterns that help them absorb heat more efficiently. Some species can actually produce different color forms depending on the day length they experience as caterpillars, preparing for seasonal conditions they'll encounter as adults. This developmental flexibility helps explain why butterfly wing patterns can evolve so rapidly. Unlike changes that require new genes to evolve, pattern modifications often involve just adjusting the timing, strength, or location of existing signals. A small change in when an organizing center becomes active, or how far its signals spread, can create dramatically different patterns. It's like having a sophisticated control panel where tiny adjustments to the dials can produce completely different outputs. The study of these developmental processes has revealed something profound about the nature of biological complexity. Patterns that appear impossibly intricate, eye spots with perfect concentric circles, stripes with mathematical precision, color gradients that would challenge a master painter, can emerge from surprisingly simple rules. The complexity we admire in butterfly wings isn't designed in the conventional sense. It's evolved, emerging from the interplay of chemical signals following physical laws. This emergence is perhaps one of the most beautiful concepts in all of biology. It shows us that nature doesn't need to carry blueprints for every possible pattern. Instead, it uses process, the dynamic interaction of simple components following simple rules, to generate complexity that seems almost magical. Each butterfly wing is both an artwork and a demonstration of how beautiful complexity can arise from elegant simplicity. Modern techniques in molecular biology have allowed scientists to watch these patterns forming in real time. Using fluorescent markers, researchers can observe the waves of gene activity spreading across developing wings, seeing the molecular conversations that will eventually become the patterns we admire in adult butterflies. It's like watching a time-lapse video of a master artist at work, except the artist is made of molecules and the canvas is alive. The precision of this system is extraordinary. Despite the complexity of the signaling networks involved, butterfly wings develop their patterns with remarkable consistency. The eye spots on the left wing match those on the right wing with mathematical precision. Stripes align perfectly across wing boundaries, and color gradients follow smooth curves that would be difficult to achieve by hand. This reliability suggests that the pattern-forming systems have been refined by evolution to be incredibly robust, able to produce consistent results even in the face of minor disruptions or variations. As you rest tonight, perhaps you can imagine these molecular artists at work, painting patterns in the darkness of countless chrysalises around the world. Chemical signals spreading like ripples on a pond, genes turning on and off in precise sequences, cells receiving their instructions and beginning to build the tiny structures that will catch light and create color. Each wing is a masterpiece painted by an artist made of molecules, following an aesthetic sense refined over millions of years of evolution. In the humid forests of Southeast Asia, there exists a butterfly that seems to carry fragments of stained glass window in its wings. The Raja Brooks birdwing, named after a British naturalist who explored Borneo in the 19th century, flies through patches of filtered sunlight like a living emerald, its wings flashing with an iridescent green so pure it seems almost supernatural. But what makes this butterfly truly remarkable isn't just its beauty. It's the sophisticated optical engineering hidden within each wing scale. Under powerful microscopes, scientists have discovered that these scales contain some of the most complex photonic structures found in nature, microscopic architectures that manipulate light with a precision that would impress a laser physicist. The green iridescence comes from scales that have evolved into living diffraction gratings, structures that split white light into its component colors just like a prism, but with far greater sophistication. Each scale contains hundreds of parallel ridges, spaced exactly 200 nanometers apart. This isn't random. It's the perfect distance to create constructive interference for green light while canceling out other colors. But the engineering goes deeper. Inside each ridge are hollow chambers filled with air, creating a complex refractive index that further refines the color production. The walls of these chambers have their own microstructures, tiny projections and cavities that fine-tune the optical properties. It's architecture within architecture, like Russian nesting dolls made of light-manipulating crystals. This creates what scientists call angle-dependent coloration, colors that shift dramatically as your viewing angle changes. Watch a Raja Brooks birdwing from different positions, and you'll see the green flash through every shade from deep forest to brilliant lime, sometimes disappearing entirely, only to blazon forth again as the butterfly adjusts its flight path. It's a light show that makes those iridescent soap bubbles from your childhood seem like crude amateur attempts at color. The optical complexity doesn't stop with simple iridescence. Some butterfly species have evolved scales that polarize light, rotating the electromagnetic field of light waves in specific directions. Most animals can't detect polarized light, but butterflies can, which means they're communicating with signals that are essentially invisible to their predators but clearly visible to potential mates. This hidden communication channel allows for courtship displays of extraordinary subtlety. A male butterfly that appears to have simple, unremarkable wings might actually be flashing complex polarized patterns that only other butterflies can see. It's like having a private conversation in a crowded room, using a language that only your species understands. The glass-wing butterflies of Central and South America have solved the optical challenge from the opposite direction. Instead of manipulating light to create brilliant colors, they've evolved wings that are almost completely transparent. Their wing scales have been reduced to tiny, widely spaced structures that allow most light to pass straight through, creating butterflies that seem to be made of living glass. This transparency serves as incredibly effective camouflage. As these butterflies fly through the dappled light of the forest understory, they become nearly invisible, nothing more than faint shimmers moving through the shadows. Predators looking for the familiar silhouette of butterfly wings find nothing solid to focus on. The butterfly has essentially made itself optically invisible. But creating transparent wings isn't as simple as just removing scales. The wing membrane itself must be engineered to minimize light scattering, and the few remaining scales must be precisely designed to avoid creating visible reflections. It's optical engineering that requires getting everything exactly right. One wrong structural element and the illusion of transparency would be broken. Some species have learned to combine transparency with strategic opacity, creating patterns that seem to float in midair. The clear-winged moths of the tropics have transparent wings crossed by opaque lines that mimic the appearance of gaps between leaves. When the moth lands among foliage, these lines align with real leaf edges, making the insect virtually impossible to detect. Perhaps even more remarkable are the butterflies that have evolved to mimic other optical phenomena entirely. The dead leaf butterflies of Asia don't just look like leaves when their wings are closed. They've evolved to mimic the optical properties of dead vegetation. Their wings have the same matte finish, the same light-scattering properties, even the same slight translucency at the edges that characterizes dried leaves. When one of these butterflies lands and folds its wings, the transformation is so complete that even experienced naturalists can lose track of them. The butterfly has essentially learned to hack the visual processing systems of predators, creating a disguise so perfect that it fools not just the eye, but the brain's pattern recognition systems. The precision required for these optical illusions is extraordinary. Dead leaf butterflies don't just have brown wings, they have wings that show the exact color variations you'd expect in decomposing vegetation. Some individuals even have wing patterns that mimic the holes and damaged edges characteristic of leaves that have been partially eaten by insects. Others show the subtle color gradations that occur as chlorophyll breaks down, creating patterns that look like autumn leaves frozen in time. But perhaps the most sophisticated optical technology in the butterfly world belongs to the morpho butterflies we encountered earlier. Recent research has revealed that their wing scales don't just create structural blue coloration, they've evolved into biological LEDs, structures that can actually amplify light through a process similar to what happens in modern electronic displays. The microscopic architecture of morphoscales includes what scientists call optical resonators, tiny cavities that trap light and allow it to bounce back and forth, building up intensity before being released. This creates colors that are not only incredibly pure, but also remarkably bright, visible from distances that would be impossible with simple pigment-based coloration. The blue appears so luminous that it seems almost artificial, like neon lighting in the forest. When morpho butterflies fly in groups, which they sometimes do during the dry season, the effect is like watching blue spotlights dancing through the trees. Local people in some parts of South America believed these butterflies were spirits of the forest, and watching them fly you can understand why. In the forests of Madagascar, an island that has been separated from the African continent for 160 million years, evolution has been conducting one of its most extraordinary experiments in butterfly diversity. Here, isolated from the influence of mainland species, butterflies have evolved into forms so unique that they seem like creatures from another planet. Consider the sunset moth, a species so spectacular that Victorian collectors paid more for specimens than they would for diamonds. This isn't technically a butterfly. It's a day-flying moth, but it demonstrates the same principles of pattern evolution pushed to their absolute limits. The sunset moth's wings don't just display one iridescent color, they show the entire spectrum, shifting from electric blue through emerald green to fiery orange and deep purple, all from the same wing surface. This isn't the random scattering of colors you might see in an oil slick. Each color appears in precisely defined bands and patterns, creating what looks like stained glass artwork animated by flight. The optical structures responsible for this display are so complex that materials scientists study sunset moth wings to learn how to create artificial materials with similar properties. The patterns on sunset moth wings follow mathematical rules that can be described by equations originally developed to understand wave propagation and interference. Each band of color corresponds to structures tuned to a specific wavelength of light, arranged in patterns that create constructive and destructive interference at precisely the right places to generate the observed colors. But Madagascar's isolation has produced more than just spectacular displays. It's also created butterflies that have evolved completely unique solutions to the challenges of survival. Some Malagasy butterflies have evolved wing patterns that mimic the local flora so precisely that they've become living botanical illustrations, their wings painted with patterns that match not just the general appearance of leaves but the specific leaf shapes and vein patterns of the plants in their immediate environment. This level of mimetic precision represents what scientists call coevolution, the process by which species evolve in response to each other, creating increasingly sophisticated relationships over time. As the butterflies became better at mimicking plants, predators became better at detecting the mimics, which in turn selected for even more precise mimicry. The result is an evolutionary arms race that has continued for millions of years, refining the accuracy of these living disguises to nearly perfect precision. The timescales involved in this process are humbling. The wing patterns we admire today represent the accumulated results of countless small improvements, each one tested by the harsh realities of survival and reproduction over thousands of generations. A butterfly whose camouflage was 99% perfect but failed to fool predators that one crucial 1% of the time left no descendants. Only those individuals whose patterns were refined to near perfection survived to pass their patterns on to the next generation. Modern genetic techniques have allowed scientists to trace the evolutionary history of these patterns with unprecedented precision. By comparing the DNA of closely related species, researchers can identify exactly which genetic changes led to which pattern modifications, creating evolutionary family trees that show how simple patterns gradually became complex masterpieces. One of the most remarkable discoveries is how rapidly butterfly wing patterns can evolve. In some cases, significant pattern changes have occurred in just a few thousand years, the blink of an eye in evolutionary terms. This rapid evolution is possible because wing patterns are controlled by regulatory genes, switches that can be adjusted without changing the fundamental structure of the animal. It's like having a sophisticated graphics program where you can create completely different images just by adjusting the settings, without having to rewrite the underlying code. This evolutionary flexibility has allowed butterflies to adapt quickly to changing environments. Climate change, habitat destruction, and the introduction of new predators can all create new selective pressures that favor different wing patterns. Some butterfly populations have been observed evolving new color forms in response to environmental changes within human timescales, providing real-time demonstrations of evolution in action. The study of butterfly evolution has also revealed something profound about the nature of innovation in biological systems. Many of the most spectacular wing patterns appear to result from what scientists call evolutionary tinkering, small modifications to existing structures and processes that produce unexpected results. Evolution doesn't design patterns from scratch, it modifies existing patterns, sometimes in ways that create entirely new forms of beauty. This tinkering process explains why butterfly wing patterns often show what appear to be themes and variations, basic pattern elements that are repeated with modifications across different parts of the wing or across different species. The same genetic toolkit that creates a simple eye spot can, with minor modifications, create complex series of eye spots, false head patterns, or abstract geometric designs. The mathematical nature of these pattern variations has led some researchers to describe butterfly wings as evolutionary art galleries, where the same aesthetic principles are explored through countless variations. It's as if evolution were an artist who discovered a particularly pleasing visual theme and then spent millions of years creating variations on that theme, each one adapted to a slightly different environment or ecological niche. Perhaps most remarkably, the study of butterfly wing patterns has begun to reveal the deep mathematical principles that underlie biological pattern formation. The same equations that describe how butterfly eye spots develop can also explain how leopard spots form, how tiger stripes arrange themselves, or how the ridges on a seashell are laid down. Nature appears to use a universal set of pattern-generating rules, modified and applied in countless different ways across the tree of life. There's something almost mystical about watching a butterfly emerge from its chrysalis and slowly unfold wings decorated with patterns of mathematical perfection. Those intricate designs, the precise spacing of eye spots, the regular alternation of stripes, the smooth gradients of color, follow rules that mathematicians have spent centuries trying to understand. The secret lies in what scientists call reaction diffusion systems, a class of mathematical equations first studied by Alan Turing in the 1950s. Turing was interested in understanding how biological patterns could emerge spontaneously from initially uniform conditions, and he discovered that simple chemical reactions, combined with the physical process of diffusion, could generate remarkably complex and regular patterns. Imagine two chemicals, let's call them an activator and an inhibitor, spreading across a surface at different rates. The activator stimulates its own production, and also produces the inhibitor. The inhibitor suppresses the activator, but diffuses more quickly across the surface. This creates a system where the activator can create local areas of high concentration, but these areas are surrounded by zones of inhibitor that prevent the activation from spreading too far. The result is a pattern of spots or stripes, with the exact form depending on the relative rates of diffusion and the strength of the chemical interactions. Adjust these parameters slightly, and you can generate every type of pattern seen on butterfly wings: single spots, series of spots, stripes, chevrons, or complex geometric designs. What makes this even more remarkable is that the same mathematical framework can explain patterns throughout the natural world. The spots on a leopard, the stripes on a zebra, the hexagonal patterns on a turtle shell, the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower. All of these follow variations of the same basic mathematical principles that govern butterfly wing patterns. This universality suggests something profound about the nature of pattern formation in biological systems. Rather than requiring separate explanations for each type of pattern, nature appears to use a single mathematical toolkit, modifying the parameters to create different outcomes. It's elegant in the way that the best scientific theories are elegant, a simple set of principles that can explain a vast range of phenomena. The mathematical precision of butterfly wing patterns becomes even more apparent when you examine them closely. The spacing between stripes often follows precise ratios. The size of eye spots correlates with wing size according to predictable scaling laws. Even the colors themselves are distributed according to mathematical rules, with color gradients following smooth curves that can be described by relatively simple equations. This mathematical underpinning helps explain why butterfly wing patterns are so aesthetically pleasing to human observers. Our brains appear to be wired to find mathematical regularity beautiful, perhaps because pattern recognition was so important for our ancestors' survival. The same neural circuits that help us distinguish edible plants from poisonous ones, or recognize faces in a crowd, also respond positively to the mathematical harmony of butterfly wing patterns. The golden ratio, a mathematical proportion that appears throughout art and architecture, can be found in many butterfly wing patterns. The spacing of elements, the proportions of different colored regions, even the curves of individual markings often conform to these aesthetically pleasing mathematical relationships. It's as if evolution has independently discovered the same principles of visual harmony that human artists have used for millennia. But the mathematics goes deeper than just static patterns. The way butterfly wings move during flight also follows mathematical principles, creating patterns of airflow that can be described by fluid dynamics equations. The flexibility of the wing membrane, the precise timing of wing beats, even the way colors shift as the wing surfaces catch and reflect light, all of these follow mathematical laws that engineers are still trying to fully understand. This mathematical foundation has practical applications beyond just satisfying our curiosity about nature. Materials scientists study butterfly wing structures to design new types of optical materials. Computer graphics programmers use algorithms based on butterfly pattern development to create realistic textures and surfaces. Even architects have drawn inspiration from butterfly wing patterns when designing buildings that need to manipulate light in sophisticated ways. The study of butterfly wing mathematics has also led to insights about how complex systems can generate ordered patterns spontaneously. This has applications in fields ranging from urban planning, understanding how cities develop their characteristic patterns of growth, to medicine, where similar principles might explain how organs form during embryonic development. Perhaps most importantly, the mathematical nature of butterfly wing patterns provides a bridge between the world of abstract mathematical concepts and the tangible beauty of the natural world. When you watch a butterfly in your garden, you're seeing mathematics made visible, equations transformed into living art that dances on the breeze. As our gentle journey through the world of butterfly wing patterns draws toward its close, we find ourselves face to face with one of the most profound questions in biology. Why is nature so beautiful? Why do butterfly wings display such extraordinary artistry when simple functional patterns would serve just as well for survival? The answer, it turns out, reveals something fundamental about the relationship between beauty and function in the natural world. What we perceive as beautiful in butterfly wing patterns isn't arbitrary decoration. It's the visible manifestation of solutions to complex survival challenges, refined over millions of years of evolutionary pressure. Consider the eye spot patterns that first captured our attention at the beginning of this journey. Those perfect circles, with their precise concentric rings and carefully graded colors, represent one of evolution's most elegant solutions to the problem of predator deterrence. The mathematical precision we find so aesthetically pleasing is actually functional precision, the exact proportions needed to trigger the startle response in potential predators. The iridescent blues and greens that shimmer on morpho butterfly wings aren't just beautiful to human eyes. They're precisely tuned optical signals that allow butterflies to communicate with potential mates across the complex visual environment of the forest. The mathematical regularity of the microscopic structures that create these colors isn't decoration, it's engineering of the highest order, creating communication systems more sophisticated than most human-made technologies. Even the subtle patterns that provide camouflage represent a form of beauty, the beauty of perfect adaptation, where form follows function so precisely that the result transcends mere utility and becomes art. When a dead leaf butterfly disappears against the forest floor, it's demonstrating a mastery of visual deception that would impress the most sophisticated military camouflage designer. This suggests that beauty and function aren't opposite poles but rather different aspects of the same underlying principle, optimization. Evolution doesn't just create solutions that barely work. It refines solutions over vast periods of time, until they achieve a kind of perfection that we recognize as beautiful. The patterns on butterfly wings are beautiful because they represent the optimal solutions to complex problems, shaped by millions of years of natural selection. This principle extends beyond just visual patterns to the entire architecture of butterfly wings. The way the wing membrane flexes during flight, the precise arrangement of the veins that provide structural support, even the microscopic scales that create color. Every element has been refined to near perfection through evolutionary processes. The result is a structure that is simultaneously functional and beautiful, where every curve and angle serves a purpose while contributing to an overall aesthetic harmony. The mathematical principles underlying these patterns, the reaction diffusion systems, the optical physics, the scaling laws, are themselves inherently beautiful to those who understand them. There's something deeply satisfying about discovering that the patterns we find visually appealing follow the same mathematical principles that describe music, architecture, and art. It suggests a fundamental unity underlying natural phenomena, a hidden order that connects the flight of a butterfly to the spiral of a galaxy. This connection between mathematics and beauty in butterfly wing patterns has philosophical implications that extend far beyond biology. It suggests that our human sense of beauty isn't arbitrary but is rooted in deep patterns that reflect the underlying structure of the universe. When we find butterfly wings beautiful, we're responding to the same mathematical harmonies that govern everything from the orbits of planets to the structure of atoms. The study of butterfly wing patterns has also revealed something important about the nature of complexity in biological systems. Complex, beautiful patterns don't require complex underlying mechanisms. Instead, they emerge from the interaction of simple processes following simple rules. This emergence, the way complex beauty arises from simple foundations, is perhaps one of the most beautiful phenomena in nature itself. As we've seen throughout this exploration, butterfly wing patterns serve as windows into fundamental principles of biology, mathematics, and physics. They're living demonstrations of how evolution works, how patterns form, how complex systems self-organize, and how beauty and function can be inextricably linked. Each butterfly wing is simultaneously a work of art, a feat of engineering, a communication device, and a solution to multiple survival challenges. And so, dear listener, we find ourselves at the end of our gentle journey through evolution's art gallery. Surrounded by masterpieces painted on wings of silk and light, we've discovered that every butterfly carries with it a story written in the language of color and pattern, stories of survival and adaptation, of mathematical precision and optical illusion, of beauty that serves purpose beyond our initial understanding. Perhaps what's most remarkable about butterfly wing patterns is how they remind us that we live in a universe where beauty and function aren't separate phenomena, but different aspects of the same underlying truth. The patterns that make us catch our breath in wonder are the same patterns that allow these delicate creatures to find mates, avoid predators, and navigate the complex challenges of survival in a world full of dangers. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, you might imagine the butterfly chrysalises hanging in gardens and forests around the world, each one containing a small miracle in progress. Inside those silk chambers, molecular artists are at work, following genetic instructions written over millions of years, painting patterns that will soon unfold into the light. Chemical signals are spreading across developing wings, creating eye spots that will stare down predators, colors that will shimmer with structural brilliance, disguises that will render their wearers invisible among the leaves. Each pattern tells a story of evolutionary innovation, of problems solved through countless small refinements over geological time. The eye spot that protects a butterfly today began as a simple dark mark millions of years ago, gradually refined through countless generations until it achieved the precise proportions needed to trigger fear in a bird's brain. The iridescent blue that flashes through the forest represents millions of tiny adjustments to wing scale architecture, each improvement allowing its bearer a slightly better chance of survival and reproduction. In your own garden, simple cabbage white butterflies carry patterns that are no less remarkable for their simplicity. Those subtle markings that distinguish males from females, those faint spots that help individuals recognize their own species, they're all part of this same grand conversation between evolution and environment, function and beauty, survival and art. The mathematical principles we've explored, the reaction diffusion systems that create spots and stripes, the optical physics that generates iridescent colors, the scaling laws that govern pattern proportions, these aren't abstract concepts but living realities painted on wings that dance through summer afternoons. Every time you see a butterfly, you're witnessing mathematics in motion, equations transformed into art that moves. There's something profoundly comforting in realizing that we live in a universe where the same forces that shape galaxies and guide the orbits of planets also paint the wings of butterflies with such exquisite care. The patterns that we find beautiful aren't accidents, but represent deep harmonies woven into the very fabric of existence. Beauty isn't separate from the natural world, it's an integral part of how the universe organizes itself. As we've seen, butterfly wing patterns also represent one of evolution's greatest achievements in communication technology. These wings carry messages encoded in colors we can see and others we cannot, in patterns that shift with angle and movement, in chemical signals that drift on the air like invisible words. Each butterfly is both artist and artwork, messenger and message, carrying information that connects it to its environment in ways we're still learning to understand. The emergence of complex patterns from simple rules, one of the central themes of our exploration, offers a kind of hope. It shows us that complexity and beauty don't require complex origins but can arise naturally from the patient interaction of simple processes over time. The most intricate butterfly wing pattern began with just a few organizing centers, sending out chemical signals, yet from these humble beginnings emerged artworks that rival anything in human museums. This emergence also suggests that we live in a creative universe, one where new forms of beauty can spontaneously arise from the interplay of natural forces. Each butterfly species represents a unique experiment in pattern formation, a novel solution to the challenges of survival expressed in the language of color and form. Evolution is not just a process of survival but a process of continuous artistic innovation, constantly generating new forms of beauty adapted to new environments and challenges. The transparency of glass-wing butterflies, the warning colors of monarchs, the startling eye spots of owl butterflies, each represents a different approach to the challenge of existence, a different way of using pattern and color to navigate the world. Together, they form a living library of solutions, a gallery where every exhibit demonstrates a different aspect of nature's creative problem-solving abilities. Perhaps most wonderfully, this gallery is always open, always growing, always adding new exhibits as evolution continues its patient work of refinement and innovation. New butterfly species are still being discovered, new pattern variations are still appearing, new solutions to ancient challenges are still evolving. The gallery we've explored tonight is not a museum of fixed exhibits, but a living, breathing, continuously creating space. The scales on a butterfly's wing, each one smaller than a grain of salt yet engineered with precision that rivals our most sophisticated nanotechnology. These remind us that we live in a world of hidden marvels, where every ordinary moment contains extraordinary wonders waiting to be discovered. The butterfly that visits your garden tomorrow carries with it millions of years of evolutionary artistry, patterns that encode solutions to problems we're still learning to understand. As you settle into sleep tonight, surrounded by the quiet presence of this living art gallery, perhaps you can carry with you a sense of wonder at the creative forces that surround us. Every garden, every forest, every wild place on earth is filled with butterflies carrying their own unique patterns, their own stories of adaptation and survival, their own contributions to the vast ongoing conversation between life and environment. In your dreams, you might find yourself walking through a landscape where butterflies are the books in an infinite library, where each wing pattern is a page in the grand story of evolution, where the flutter of wings writes poetry in the language of light and color. And in the morning, when you step outside and see a butterfly dancing among your flowers, you'll know that you're witnessing not just a beautiful creature, but a living masterpiece painted by time itself. Thank you for joining me on this gentle journey through the painted wings of evolution's art gallery. If these quiet explorations of science bring you peace, I'd be deeply grateful if you'd like the video, subscribe to our sleepy community, or share your own butterfly encounters in the comments below. Where in the world are you listening from tonight, and what butterfly patterns have painted themselves into your memories? Until our next exploration into the wonders of the natural world, sleep well, dream peacefully, and remember that you live in a universe where mathematics becomes art, where function transforms into beauty, and where the flutter of butterfly wings carries messages written in the oldest language of all, the language of life, adapting, surviving, and creating beauty along the way. Sweet dreams, fellow travelers in this gallery of living art.